Welcome to World Geography. This is our second week in the continent, or on the continent of Asia, and we are just going to be picking up where we left off in our slide presentation last week with some economic characteristics of Asia. Right here we're looking at a slide talking about the Green Revolution. The Green Revolution was a period of time from the 1940s to 1960s when new strains of rice and other crops were introduced to developing parts of the world. The great thing about these crops was that they produced more food per square acre and allowed food production to keep pace with the population growth. So we're going to go through some of these slides. Some of them I will pause and comment. Others I will just kind of scroll through and let you go back and review them more thoroughly because we have quite a few slides to get through today. We actually will be going all the way to slide 45. So as we've talked about in the past, there's a difference between developing and developed countries. Most countries in Asia are developing. China and India would both be considered developing, while they do have quite a bit of industrialization and their economies are growing. Because of their high amounts of poverty, they would be considered developing. So here is a map that kind of outlines for you visually, comparing some of the countries that have the more advanced economies, like the United States, Canada, most of Western Europe, and Australia and New Zealand. Those that are in transition, which would be like Eastern Europe and some parts of Asia, the less developed, these orange here, Mexico, Central and South America, many of the countries in Africa, and most of them in Asia as well, in Southeast Asia. And then you have the red, which are the least developed. Okay. So the developed countries in Asia would be considered Japan, Taiwan, Singapore, and South Korea. Taiwan, Singapore, and South Korea are considered newly industrialized countries because they have only been industrialized within the last 50 years. Okay. And their economies no longer rely on agriculture as their primary source. Japan is highly industrialized, but it has been industrialized since the late 19th century. Okay, so here is a picture from Japan. You'll notice the cherry blossoms. This is a Shinto temple, which we'll talk about in just a few moments there, and Mount Fuji. Japan has one of the largest fishing fleets in the world. It also has automobile factories, but in general, the economy there is moving toward the service sector. Japan is the economic leader in Asia, in this region of the world. It's heavily dependent on imported raw resources. It must import about 50% of its food and most of its fuel. And if we were to look at a map, you would notice that Japan is all islands. It's a series of several islands there, fairly small in size. And so because of its size and its location, they do not have the land to be able to produce their own natural resources. So they do have some, but they're, like I said, about 50% have to be imported. So China is considered communist, not in its economy, but in terms of its political power. Okay, so there's a difference. It does not have a communist economy, but it does have a communist ruler. They primarily had a centrally planned or command economy. However, in the last 30 or 40 years, they have transitioned towards a free market economy. The main reason for wanting to do this was because they wanted to keep up with other countries, particularly the U.S. and many of the European nations, that they wanted to be able to trade globally in the global market. And so due to rapid industrialization, China now faces some environmental problems and some other issues as well, but their economy continues to grow. Some of these environmental effects, some come because they have become dependent upon hydroelectric energy, which is produced through the Three Gorges Dam, and that's a picture of it there in the background. Because they do not have governmental regulations for many of these things, including corporations, Fish and wildlife have suffered, and they are also seeing the results of chemical waste and pollution. So one of the implications of that was when the Beijing Olympics was held there several years ago, the runners and some of the other athletes had to adjust to the smog. So they actually had to come and start training and preparing there in Beijing weeks prior, just so that they could adjust, their bodies could adjust to the smog and the pollution. China is the largest consumer of coal, producing 3 times more pollution than the United States. Okay. So again, just a brief review. We've talked about this before, but some of 3 types of economies. There's the free market, mixed, and the command. Again, we talked about how China has moved from this command economy. They were a mixed economy for a while and are making their way towards a free market economy. The only country in Asia with a strict command economy is North Korea, and that is because they are communist, both in their economy and in their political power. Laos, Vietnam, and China are all transitioning towards free market economies. Okay. Economic union. So we talked about this when we talked about Europe. Europe also has an economic union. The largest economic union in this part of the world is called ASEAN, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, and the members are Brunei, Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, Vietnam, Thailand, Philippines, Singapore, Malaysia, and Myanmar, or also known as Burma. Okay, so the union of these 10 nations helps to promote economic, cultural, and social development. It also has developed regional peace and relative political stability. Okay. In this part of the world, there's also some countries that are called the Asian Tigers. These would be Taiwan, Hong Kong, Singapore, and South Korea. And they have earned this title because of their aggressive economic growth. So here's just a map showing you those 10 members and where their countries are, respectively. So population. Parts of Asia are very densely populated and parts are very sparsely populated. And again, if you look at a map, you'll notice that the densely populated areas include eastern China, so along the coast, India, Japan, and most of Southeast Asia. The sparsely populated areas are more western China, Mongolia, and the areas in the Himalayan mountains, and primarily because of their geography. Okay, here is a chart comparing the population growth in China, and I'll let you kind of look at that in more detail. So China has had some unique challenges in terms of population. It's the most populated country in the world. India is the second, and they are actually really close in numbers. I don't know if India has surpassed China yet or not, but I know they're close. So at one point, China had instituted the one-child policy in order to limit population growth. And that basically said that families, couples, could only have one child. This created all sorts of interesting cultural issues. It increased the rate of abortion in China because most families wanted to have a boy instead of a girl. So if a couple discovered they were pregnant and they were carrying a baby girl, oftentimes they would abort the baby girl, or they would have the baby, give it up for adoption, and then be free to try again to see if they could have a little boy. So that has impacted their population in quite a few ways. We'll talk some more about that later. So cities. Asia has some of the largest cities in the world. And in Asia, as in other parts of the world, there's an extreme contrast between the urban areas and the rural areas. So people in the rural areas are still living a more traditional lifestyle where their homes are constructed out of things that they can find and construct themselves. And many of them are practicing subsistence farming. And many of them are looking for ways to be able to move to cities so that they can find better jobs and have better opportunities for improvement. So there's just a few pictures here of some of the larger cities in Asia. And again, I'll let you go back and look at those in your own time. This is another slide I want you just to go back and review, talking about the area of manufacturing, and the fact that if we look at most of the products in our homes, we will discover that a huge percentage of them are manufactured in China and other parts of Asia. And so I want you to go back and just review this slide and spend some time thinking about what this might mean. Okay. So some of the cities that we talked about, Singapore, Hong Kong, Zan, China, and Varanasi, India, are all situated strategically. So Singapore and Hong Kong are both islands. They are also on a trade route, as well as Zan, China. It was also part of the Silk Road. And then we have Varanasi, India, which is a focal point for religious pilgrimages. And so these situations and their locations have all had an impact on their economies. So here's another map kind of detailing or showing those different trade routes. So you can see some of the major cities that are along those routes, and you'll notice that rather than trying to go, for the most part, now this one goes right over the top of the mountains. For the most part, though, they go around the mountains here for obvious reasons, but I'll let you review that. So again, Asia has some of the largest cities in the world, and there's an extreme contrast. The population density is extremely high in Asian cities. So just to kind of give you an idea, in Mumbai, India, the population there is 73,837 people per square mile. So some of the religions of Asia, Confucianism, Taoism, Shinto, Hinduism, and Buddhism. We're going to take a look at those a little bit more in detail here. So Confucianism was founded by Confucius in China. It's an atheist religion. There are 5 to 6 million current followers. It's a social code based on morality rather than laws, and it has established social order within the Chinese society. And you'll find that many people who don't practice necessarily Confucianism still adhere to many of these social laws because they are so ingrained in their society and in their culture. Okay, they believe the answer to social ills is self-cultivation, so making yourself better, self-improvement, education. They put a strong emphasis on family loyalty and relationships, and the needs of the group are most important. So how can I help you? Okay, we also see Taoism. It is also contrasting good versus evil, light versus dark. You might recognize this symbol here, the yin and the yang. That comes from Taoism. So I'll let you take a few minutes and go back and look at that. Shinto. So this is a Japanese religion. Again, it's atheistic. There is no God. They believe that most things have a kami or a spirit. They use prayers and offerings to the spirits, and they practice divination, spirit possession, and shamanic healing. So Shinto led to the Japanese belief that as sole descendants of the sun, they were uniquely gifted to rule the world. Okay. Here again is that picture of the Shinto holy site. And then we have Hinduism, which is primarily found in India. And when we talk about India, we'll talk much more about this, but it's one of the oldest religions in the world, and they do not have one particular founder. Okay, it's kind of evolved over time. Their basic beliefs are that Brahman is the main supreme spirit, and there are many spirits and demigods underneath him. They believe in karma and reincarnation, and the caste system is a big part of Hinduism as well. And again, when we talk about India, we'll talk some more about that. So we also have Buddhism, which is closely related to Hinduism. I'll let you take a look at that. And this is where we are going to leave off on our slides for today. Again, you can take some time to go back and read through these. A couple things to note. You do not have the correct map of Oceania and Australia in your syllabus, so I will get you a copy of that to label. You may have noticed that when you're trying to label your map this week. And I'm also going to be sending you a new copy of the rubric for your country report just to make sure you have that. Okay, so your homework this week is to review these and work on your study questions. And I will see you next week. Have a great week.